What is smartness trap? Well, in simple words, it is someone who knows a lot of things but is unable to reproduce it in their life. So let me start with what I'm going to cover today. So we are going to talk about why most people fail. That's the first edition I'm going to talk in this presentation, followed by something called as ethos. This is a term which has been coined by me, especially after interacting with more than 20,000 people across last decade. I call this as building the ethos. And there are 11 points which I'm going to cover, and I presume that's going to help you a lot in your life. So if you want to really take some notes, take a paper and pen and start writing, because these are very, very essential points which I'm going to cover, which will not only help in your day-to-day life, but probably if you look yourself 10 years, 20 years down the line, it's going to really help you out. And then finally, some few conclusion notes where you can really go on and ask me a few questions that you might have related to this presentation, or anything you might be, want to know about a few things in life. So let me put the core fact, and this is very, very important to understand. 95% of people today don't really know what they expect from their life. And it's not about the smartness here. They are smart, and they are really, really smart. I mean, look at your surrounding. You'll find so many people around you who are great at paintings, amazing at elocutions, phenomenal in writing, but somehow they can't really reproduce. And that is what I call as a smartness trap. Well, you study so much, right? You score great marks, but does the life allow you that kind of composition? Does life accept you the way it is? Well, no. That's because we are only educating ourselves in a very, very schematic manner, which might not really help you out in your life. To do something extra in your life, or you want to really see this as you want to stand out of the batch of people, then you need to do something which 5% of people are not really sure of doing. So to be not amongst those 95% of people that you see on the screen right now, you need to be the other 5%, which are fluidic, where they are learning a lot of things, and most importantly, they are amplifying in their life. It's no point in painting in your house and probably not taking feedback of people, right? Or a great singer practicing but can't really go out and sing in front of people. Then what is the point? So here is the term called as fluidic, and I term this uh, you know uh, I coined this term as fluidic thinking. And what is fluidic thinking? Let me give an example. I'm sure that you know the person to the right. I mean, the iGuru, the iPhones. How many of you all know the person in the left? Yes, CV Raman, and you might be already knowing him of a lot of effects that, the term which is the Raman effect, a lot of people. But let me tell you one of the very, very important aspect here. Now, CV Raman was also very, very fluidic in thinking. Let me start by saying this. He has done an extreme research in the field of musical tones. Now, if you read this particular paragraph, I'm not going to keep it here for long. I'm going to share the slides later, maybe. But if you read a few lines, and if someone can put me a message if they understand anything from here, I'm sure that you will find a little hiccup. Now, this is what he talks about, something called as harmonic overtones. It's a research paper that he published in 1920. Now, it's very, very difficult to even read and correlate what he talks about. But guess what instrument he is mentioning? He's talking about something called as mridanga, which is one of the ancient instruments of India. Now, he has written a research paper how this is one of the most sophisticated harmonic overtones instrument in India. And if you read the research paper, I'm going to share the link later. You can read about it. If you're really passionate about art, then you need to understand, you'll understand this component which I'm talking about. Now, someone who is very, very good at science has a research in art. He's got research in music. I mean, take an example of Newton, for example. Well, you talk about gravity, but have you seen the kind of work that he has done in so many fields, including astronomy? Now, these are the people who have created impact. In our life, we've been told to focus on one thing. Yes, that's right. But look at these people, phenomenal people doing research in amplified domains. Now look at this design. This design is a Frank Lloyd Wright design. how a waterfall design has been integrated in a very, very scenic atmosphere. Let me show you another one. Look at the windows. It's the very famous Eicher homes. And if you look at the panel, just look at the window panel. Don't look at anything else. And then you realize that Steve Jobs was actually inspired by the windows of this Eicher homes. How beautiful this building is, how the frames of iPhone. Now you compare the iPhone screens with these and you realize that iPhone is very seamless. Now, if you look at the first picture right up there, you realize this picture, you realize that the person inside the house can actually see the atmosphere outside, right? Clarity. And that is what iPhone is, a simplified version. Let's go back. Look at this image. How an environment is very, very crystal clear from the house inside. This is what the new design of California Apple office is, that you see as a spaceship, right? If you see their windows, it's got really, really atmospheric, content there. You can actually sit and say, visualize things outside. That is how these people were. We talked about Mridingi, we talked about someone who was passionate about arts, which is Steve Jobs, and that inspired him to come out with the most phenomenal phone, a touch phone, which is the iPhone, and with one key. When no one talked about physical, when everyone talked about physical phones, he came out with one touch button, and that changed the entire way how people use smartphone today. Or you talk about the smart keys, and that changed the entire atmosphere of the how people use the phones. That brings me to the important part now. And listen to this very carefully. And this is something I really talk to a lot of students, younger minds, where I said to them number of times that these are personal hacks. These are personal improvements that you need to go through. Now, make some notes, share it with your friends. I'm going to leave my social media handles later. If you like some few points, share it across. I'm going to share my personal email as well, where you can email me. But in case after this presentation you have any questions, feel free to drop me a note. You can select the chat option and you can drop me a question. I'll be more than happy. So let's begin with the first part, which is be a Spartan. I'm sure that most of you, being young minds, also watch movies and are a big fan of Sparta. And they have this very, very old quote which says, sweat in the practice mode and you'll bleed less in the war. Relentless pursuit is the key to be successful. It's no point in practicing at home and you can't, or you don't have passion to go and fight. It could be your exams, it could be some things in your life. You are a great programmer, you program something but you don't go out and talk to people. There's no point. Put in a lot of hard work and sweat and you'll bleed less in the reality. A lot of times students talk about just looking at education as education. Yes, great, no doubt about that. But what do you learn with it? Knowledge is an essence of a beauty. You need to understand knowledge can't really be just kept with you. You need to be special. Now when I mean what I mean by special is how, ask yourself if you do these three things. A, do you write something in your life? It could be your personal notes. If you like some lecture in your class, do you write about it? Do you talk about it? Second, how many presentations do you give? Do you go on stage? Do you take webinars? Do you learn something new every day? And the third important thing, do you broadcast it? Do you go and talk about to a few people saying that, hey, today I took a course on LinkedIn and I really helped. I learned a lot of things there. How many of y'all do that? And I'm sure that right now, those 20, 22 people that we have here, very, very few people would say, yes, we do that. But it's important that you learn a lot of things in a practice mode, but it's no point if you don't go out and talk about it. And that's very important. Whether you talk about it on Twitter, whether you talk about it on Facebook, or it could be Instagram, wherever. Be a Spartan. And they were known to be one of the greatest warriors in the world, ancient world, right? So you need to do something. And that being said, I want to clear out one simple thing is you need at this point, you need to know what you want to be in life. And that is very important. Ask me, I knew at day one when I took an engineering seat, I knew I would want to be an entrepreneur. You need to answer that. If you don't know at this particular point, take a note and ask a few questions to yourself. One is, where do I see myself in next 6 months? And once you've answered that, talk about 6 years from now. I call this as a small win. Right? I'm going to talk about it a little later. But if this is clear, let's go to the second one. which is correlate to the first one, a chauffeur knowledge. There is this very old, story of Max Planck. He was a very well-known scientist, and he received a Nobel Prize, and he used to deliver a lot of talk. And I'll tell you where this term of chauffeur comes in place. Chauffeur is nothing but a driver. It's an alternative name. It's a synonym for driver. A lot of time, this Max Planck used to deliver lectures in different cities, and the driver used to be at the audience and used to hear him out. And every time he used to talk the same knowledge. He used to deliver the same content. So one fine day when he was driving him back to his house, uh, the driver asked him, the chauffeur asked him, like, hey, every time you deliver the same lecture, what is the advantage? What is the fun in it? So that Max Planck said that, why don't you give the next one when I'm speaking at Berlin? So one of the Berlin incidences was damn funny. So what happened was, this time he said that, why don't you go on the stage and talk while I sit in the audience? So now the roles got replaced. So the Max Planck, the person who won the Nobel Prize, was sitting in the audience. Well, the driver, the chauffeur, was actually delivering the talk. The talk went really well because Max Planck's content was delivered by the chauffeur, and the audience was like, wow, he's delivered so amazing. And they knew about this guy. So driver actually impersonated as the guy who was Max Planck. So roles got switched. So now came the question and answer session, right? Question and answer session. And now the driver got really worried, because if Berlin asked a tough question, which they usually do, what will happen to them? So one of the person asked a question, and now he didn't know the answer. So what did he do? He said, it's a very, very simple question, my friend, and this is Berlin. I never thought Berlin would ask such a simple question. And he points at the chauffeur, which is Max Planck on the seat in the audience, and he says, even my driver can answer it. So you can imagine the driver now switched the role, and Max Planck was actually driver. So what driver did was, he was actually pointing at Max Planck was sitting in the audience, which clearly said that you didn't have to prepare for that, right? He had to just grasp it and just point it to Max Planck was sitting in the audience as a chauffeur. The point which I want to make is, this is the biggest deadlock in your life. If you learn something, if you don't emulate it, you don't talk about it, whether you write blogs, you talk to people about this, you learn, you talk to your friends. If you don't see yourself growing every day, you're not worth exploring the life as yet. You haven't really explored the life. So make sure that you spend your life every day when you go to bed. Ask yourself if you have learned something very, very new in life. It could be related to, if you love art, talk about if you learned something. There's so many things in, whether you love design, whether you love development, you code, you like Python, you like Java, jo bhi hai. Make sure that you start loving things. And chauffeur knowledge is something which is a dead block. The third one is energy sense. A lot of time, again, people ask me, what is the best way to introduce yourself? I always tell them, it's body language. A lot of time I visited conferences, I give so many talks, I've seen people just entering with lazy dress styles, drop shoulders, very, very unimpressive. You give interviews and you walk in as if someone has just walked in out of his sleep, and it doesn't really help. So make sure what introduces you is your passion of knowledge, your passion of consistency, your passion of relentless pursuit in life, and energy sells. And I always quote this: your energy introduces you first, and then you yourself introduce, your own self. So make sure that, when you talk about introduction, whether you answer interviews, talk about the energy levels first. You need to produce a great result, and that will only happen when your body language is exploding energy. And I say exploding, it actually means atomic exploding. So you need to have this true character which amplifies what you are, and that puts a great, habits in someone sitting or asking about you. Like, let me give you an example. I mean, if someone gives you a morning, intimation, you say morning, good morning, and he's dull and you want to see his face, right? That is exactly what happens. So you make sure that you introduce your energy very, very powerful. This is one of my core concepts. I talk about this very highly. Time block. How many of you actually spend time non-digital? And what I mean, I have a very schematic working hours. I work very efficiently in my morning half, but I make sure that I never reply to any of the WhatsApp that I receive. I don't go and check my Instagram. I don't check my Facebook, and I call this as time block. If someone is making a note out of this, make sure that you have at least 4 hours in your day where you don't touch your digital devices, whether it could be your TV, it could be digital streaming devices, it could be your phone. And I repeat, do not touch your phone when you're working efficiently. Focus is very important. If someone messages you, suspend it, maybe reply to the end. I do it number of times. I sometimes reply to messages at the end of the day. Well, if you're not using your time, and I repeat this several times again and again in this presentation, currency is secondary. Your time is the biggest currency today. If you don't use your time very efficiently, trust me, the kind of life you will have, you'll be bored of it. You'll not enjoy it. Look at Leonardo da Vinci, created such phenomenal work. I mean, people talk about the design today. No one talked about those design, few years back. But today, you see the kind of work that he has done. Besides the Mona Lisa, if you see the work he has done, people talk and give so many examples of it. People don't know about the few things that he has done. Check out Vitruvian. Check out some of the work that he has done, and it's just phenomenal. It tells you about the relentless pursuit. If you know about Einstein, I'm sure you know about Einstein. His kid once said that his biggest failure of the project has been he himself. That means he has never given time to the family. I don't say do a time block uh, with suspending your life from people, but work at least 4 hours without digital distraction. And I coin this term as social distraction and digital distraction. And it's very important. I mean, look at your day where you spend 4 hours, not continuously. You might want to take 1 hour. After that, you might want to take a 15 minutes break, but get back to work. But 4 hours is extreme focus. To not touch your desire. Where if I have to coin this, don't bring your desires here. Whether you want to get up, I usually sit on the computer every hour, so I have good 7 to 8 hours of time block. 1 hour burst time. That means 1 hour each is my period. And what I do most consistently is I sit with all what I need. I will sit with my stationery. I will sit with my water bottle, everything. But I will not get up for 1 hour straight. So 1 into 4 to 5 hours is what I'm expecting, and that will really change. Do it habitually and religiously. You will create a lot of impact. And I've got a very interesting concept, and I call this, I'm going to talk about it a little later, but this is something which is very important. I'm going to just a little speed up in this case. So this is called as a circle of toxicity. Ask yourself if you have got people around you who demotivate you or depressurize, um, pressurize, not depressurize, but pressurize you, or you probably are not happy with it, or, you want to do something in your life and they're like, hey, don't do this, or, what will you achieve by doing this? These are people who will bring you down. I have a nice video, I talk about it. I'm on my podcast. I'm going to share the link a little later. But have a people around you who will see yourself growing. And I call this as a circle of growth, rather, than having a circle of toxicity. Make sure that you have people whom and who support you in being what you are and what you want to be. And that is very important, whether it is your parents or good friends. Don't keep circle of toxicity. It's people who think mediocre, people who talk very thin, people who talk about, don't do this, you will not succeed in life. Stay away from them. I talk about this concept called as 5 a.m. monk, and I strictly follow this. If I have to ask you how many of you all get up early in the morning, I'm sure that very few of you, right? And I coined this term as the 5 a.m. monk. Monk are the people who struggle very hard, don't get distracted, they continuously work. Start your day very early. You want to get early morning rituals right. I'm going to share a video later. You can check that out, how effectively you can use morning routines. What I do usually is get up early in the morning, do a little mental and physical fitness, and then I'm back to work. Because morning time is a great time where world is sleeping. And when the world is sleeping, it's a great time you will not have distraction. So if you really want to see an impact in you, be a part of this 5 a.m. monk. And I have this a habit of a lot of people. I have this club of people who tell me, sir, I got up early in the morning, and this is very impactful. So try it out. Art of saying no, very essential. If you are of a person who only says yes, let's go out, yes, let's party, yes. Trust me, answering no will help you a lot. So if you want to make sure you want to grow, take a hardest decision of life of saying no sometimes, and that will help you a lot. Evolution versus revolution, yes, both are essential. You want to evolve as a person by learning great things. You want to also create a revolution, changing something into some better form, and evolution, making an impact. And both are very, very essential in life. So take care of this. You start learning a few things, and I'm sure that it will create a lot of impact in life. We talk about surrender your ego. This is very important. Sometimes when we have, when we learn a lot of things, our head starts going up in the sky. We feel cloud nine. We feel very egoistic. Surrender your ego. Knowledge asks for sacrifices, and the sacrifices come when you surrender your ego. And that comes because, oh, I know Java a lot. I can program great. I am great programmer. There's nothing called as great or good. You have to evolve every day, practice very hard, and that way, that is only going to happen when you surrender your ego. Keep your ego on the ground, talk very high, but practice very hard. This is a very important point. What and how you ask is what you get. In your career, make sure that you want to talk to someone. I have this principle of meet a new person every day. You go on LinkedIn, you go on Facebook, connect with professionals in your life. Like if you want to be a good programmer, you want to be a Java programmer or Android programmer, talk to people who have been in the field of Android or Java or Python or jo bhi hai. Talk to them and meet one person every day. And I call this as a principle of one person, one-on-one person every day. And this helps. I've been doing this for so many years now. It's been very impactful. Out of ownership, if you have committed any mistakes, take a ownership of it. Work hard. This also comes of responsibility. Nothing of those 1 to 9 points will work if you don't have ownership. You can't be a 5 a.m. monk and you will not exercise physically and mentally until and unless you have art of ownership. You have to be responsible for your mental health, physical health, and knowledge. And these three elements are the triangle of life, and you need to put in efforts. Unlearn cycle, very important. Whenever you do a few things in life, make sure you go back in learning, relearning, and unlearning. That's a circle. You learn, you relearn, unlearn, and that is how it happens. It's a circle of life. You need to keep learning new things in life. Every day you go back to bed writing good things that happen. I have a video of this. I'm going to share the link after this presentation. Just read through all the videos that I have. That will give you an insight about what is a learning cycle. Life is all about poker. Annie Duke has been one of the very inspirations in the world. She's been the poker champ, world champion. She says life is poker and not a chess. So play uncertainty game. You can't every time play a move and think over it again and again. Sometimes you have to predict the future and play around. Life is exactly the same. So play it like a poker. I've got a few recommendations. If you read books, I highly recommend reading a chapter a day. That's a principle that I have. I coined this as a chapter a day. And if you have habits of reading books, these are for entrepreneurs. If you're looking to start up a few companies or company rather, these are the books you can read through. These are books if you love business, you can read this. I would highly recommend reading The Grit by Angela Duckworth. It's a beautiful book. You can read. And if you love Netflix, you should read this book, Mark Randolph, a great book there. And these are my two books. I'm the only Indian author who has written on Flutter. And this book has, in this book, I cover how to clone Zomato, and it's really received very well. So you can check it out. The Kindle Edition ebooks are available, so you can buy the ebooks on Amazon. This is my podcast. I've got some amazing stuff here, and a lot of people talk about it. You can go here, check this podcast on Spotify. Before that, I would suggest you to go to YouTube and search the growth marketplace. I've got everything here. I talk about morning habits. I talk about, this is a recent, some few people told me I should write, I should have a video channel of myself. So a few, I think around 3 weeks back, I came up with this podcast, video casting, and these are the videos you could check out. My podcast has been running for many months now. It's been almost a year plus, I think, around a year rather, and it's got almost 10,000 plus views every day. So I highly recommend. This is a new channel. You can subscribe it, share it with your friends as well, and sharing is caring, as they say, and definitely you'll learn a lot of value. Key takeaways: the time is now. To be a leader, you need to be feeding your professional and personal growth. Personal is mental and physical. Whether you do yoga or gymming, professional is learn something new. If you learn Java, start learning more things in Java. Go deep, go hard, and that is the reason I say risks are not always visible. It's a life of poker, right? You can't be skilled sailor in calm waters. Go deep, face the toughest waters respectfully. Don't have the ego. Do it very skillfully and tactically, and that's very important. So that's me. You can, if you really like this presentation, you want to know more, I'm available on Instagram and of course Twitter. Share a feedback about this, and of course you can tag me. I'll be more than happy. And I am done with my presentation right on time. So if there are any questions, Samir, I would be more than happy to take from the. You can leave a comment. I'll be more than happy to talk about it. Has anyone any questions? You can leave in the chat. That's my YouTube channel. You can subscribe to it. You'll get regular updates. Share it with your friends as well. I've got some amazing episodes to that. So if you have any questions, students, you can leave a message to me and I'll be more than happy. It could be related to your career. It could be anything related to your personal growth. I'll be more than happy to answer. Samir, if they have any questions?
Yeah, no. So might be thinking about you told them the many good things altogether means they are thinking that like I think right now. I have one question for you in behalf of student community only. I will ask. Hello.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, basically you said that morning is good time to get up, right? But I
Right.
heard from many of the students, from my students also, last 7 to 8 years I am in teaching field, right? The many students says that we are happy to read the books or do the programming at the night time. They are
Right.
lazy at the morning session. What do you want to say on this?
Right. So a lot of time developers do that, and this is a
Yeah,
good
yeah,
question. I think if you look at the Americans or German, they will never sacrifice their sleep. If you want to get up early morning, it's nothing but why they code at night is because they want to be very calm. They don't want to be distracted. We put a wrong habits in our body. Night are meant to be resting. You need to give rest. Essentially, a doctor suggests that you need to sleep for a good 7 hours, and not even 7 hours, 7 to 9 hours. And that is very important because sleep is essential component.
yeah, yeah.
Night, yes, you can work, but why night has to be 2 a.m. You can very well sleep at 9:30 p.m. having a good dinner and get up at 4 o'clock and still do that same. Night is essentially to sleep. A lot of time people spend on phones, spend on replying messages. It's not a great time. And I think habitually, if you see, IT professionals are most impacted by coronary diseases or heart diseases or any physical issues in their mid 40s and 50s just because of the sleeping issues. Yes, one of the time, I'm not saying get up every day at 5 o'clock. You can give suspensions to a few things. If you look at Indian captain Virat Kohli talks very high about sleeping effectively, good diet, and how that impacts, and professionals don't take this seriously. I never took it seriously as well. Many years back, it's been that I have been taking sleep seriously. My schedule is very fixed, and when you start doing it, your body takes a habit of it. And I think once people understand to protect their health, the very fact that we are taking this session online is because we want to protect our health right now, isn't it? The COVID cases have been impactful outside. So health is always first. So once you take care of health, you can be more productive. So it's a request to all of the people, students, if they're listening, you start doing a morning routine, be the 5 a.m. monk, be a part of this club that I have, the 5 a.m. monk, and that will be really helpful. I hope I have answered your question, Samir.
Yeah, yeah.
Right?
Uh,
So I'll take this two questions that I think people have. Would you please elaborate on fluid thinking? Leanne, I'm going to have this episode put up I think in a couple of days is already there. You should subscribe to my channel because I talk about what fluidic thinking is. In nutshell, fluidic thinking is nothing but how you can be different from someone. Like you talk about, Steve Jobs. Steve Jobs talked not only about devices, but he talked about how to make devices as part of life in being more simplified fashion. Everyone talked about hardcore keyboards when he brought in the software keyboard in place. So what fluidic means is nothing but be different. Be be very very open minded about learning new things. You learn Java, you program few things, then don't just learn Java. You talk about, today if you look at websites, it's not about just website, it's about front end, how to design good, how to develop those front end codes. Then you talk about back end, you write the back end APIs and a few other things. So just get deep into it. So let me give you an example. So let's say you love Java, get in touch with few people who learn Java, ask them what do they do in their company, talk to them, connect with one person a day, get on the LinkedIn, build your good profile, and reach out to maximum people. And that is what fluidic thinking is. You love art, see how your technology can build art. Like for example, one of my students recently developed a Ludo game in Flutter, reading my book. And that is what happens, right? So he loved Ludo because he couldn't really, but now of course he was reading a lot of stuff, and now suddenly, due to this COVID issue, he's been working from home, and now he thought, sir, I want to actually build a Ludo game. So he had Flutter in his mind because he knew Flutter, and then he built game out of it. Now programmer to a gamer, you see how fluidic he was. So that's what it is. Learn, keep your mind open in learning a few things. Mohit Kamath has a question here. Sometimes we feel like changing the career, what we should do. Take a pen and paper, ask 3 questions to yourself. If you're writing right now, I'll tell you those questions. I always ask them. What is the one thing, I call this as a one thing principle. What is the one thing you want to learn in your life? What do you see yourself after 6 months and after 6 years? Answer this 2 questions. And that should not have multiple answers. That should be, you want to be a guitarist, you write guitarist there, and then you think from that perspective. If you're thinking from a perspective that what what you will earn, that's the wrong question to ask. You should ask yourself what value you will bring to the society, what value you will bring to your family, what value you will bring to yourself, and that amplifies it. I'm an entrepreneur because I love talking to people, I love building solutions, and I like to build value by building those solutions. Similarly, ask those questions to yourself, what I want to see myself as. But whatever you are, don't get disappointed with it, because sometimes morning time you need to be a Spartan, right? You are Spartans, and they used to be only fighters, tough fighters. They fought hard, but practice in whatever you want to do. But changing career, it's a very tricky situation. So as I mentioned, ask first question: where do I see myself in 6 months down the line, in 6 years? And I call this a short thing. Second question is: am I doing this because I want to earn more, or am I doing this to add value? That's the second question you need to ask. Third, third question, and very important, am I happy with it? And that is the third most important thing. Am I happy with this decision I'm taking? You, not your family. Are you happy with it? So these 3 questions you can ask. Leon has another question. Doesn't your income decide the security of your future? Why should it be a priority? Shouldn't be a good question, Leon. A lot, 90% of the students talk about it. You have a question, in return here, right? You want to be seen as impact player of longevity, or you want to be seen as someone who earns the money and pays highest taxes? Money doesn't define knowledge. Knowledge doesn't define money as well, but knowledge can have money. So you can look at from the perspective of what brings what. Like there is this old story you might be knowing. Henry Ford asked, never, he created a car. He never asked about, uh, asked people what he wants to create, because then he thought people who ask, they wouldn't be believing in the car. They would have said, I need faster horses. Do not keep that choice of earning. If you have earning money in your mind, then you will never ever proceed. But yes, if you put knowledge first, you learn a lot of things, people will admire you. Most important, you will have your own people believing in you. We talk about straight drives. We only talk about, Sachin Tendulkar for that matter. You talk about basketball. There are few players that come in mind. You talk about presidents. You talk about, president. You talk about Abdul Kalam, and so many things in life where they have created impact. And that's a beautiful stories, when people, and that is the reason I say that, you should read books, because books are greatest assets. I've got this episode on my growth marketplace where I talk about how you should read books. You should go through that and read it, because sometimes those stories help. Now, the reason I'm talking about why stories help is, imagine 10 years down the line where people will believe in you because you have created knowledge and help society, help people, bring value, rather than just yielding money. You are never known as, a person who has X crores of rupees or billions of rupees, but it's what impact you create. You talk about Reliance today. People are using Geo. It's the vision with Dhirubhai Ambani had, and today you see, growing at that pace, and people, everyone using Geo phones. So yes, put in efforts, put relentless journey in learning, and money will follow. And that's been, the code which I would want to say, that play a game of longevity, relentless growth, passion, and perseverance. And I think that holds the key. So I don't believe in income. I don't believe in money. I don't believe, as I said, I believe in only one thing called as impact. So replace income with impact. You create impact, money will flow. I hope I've answered that, Rian. Great. So any more questions, guys? So I'm leaving my email address here, in case anyone has any questions. You could, share it with your friends. I am with Prajyot M on Instagram. If you want to check out, if you like something, if you like any of those quotes in my presentation, share it with your friends, tag me, and I will be more than happy to answer any questions. Over to you, Samir. If there are any no more further questions, then we can probably pause here.
Yeah, yeah. Thanks, Prajyot, for your time with students. Right, I'm very much happy to you share your thoughts, your ideas with students on the behalf of
Oh, wait,
the
I think Samir, there's one question. I think I'll just quickly answer this. Mohit has a question. Does degree really matter? Well, Mohit, if you ask me, education matters. Whether it is a degree or what you learn, you create a degree. Don't look at degree as degree. Look at degree as a gold mine where you need to dig the gold, dig for the gold rather. Start digging it. Degree is just a byproduct of it. What you learn is essentially important. Degrees, I don't see a degree as a degree. It's a paper after all. But most importantly, what you learn in this 3 years, 2 years, or 1 year, that plays important role. So look at how you play the game. It's a test match game. Every day is a test match. You need to play defensive or front foot. That is what you need to look at. Look at education as a knowledge center. Do not look at it as a degrees point of view. Right. I think Samir, you can go ahead now.
yeah. Uh, Thanks, Prajit, for your wonderful session. I'm really happy to have you in this webinar session. You open the students' mind drastically, I can say, because the many of us, including me, many a times we work on the this Facebook and digital media. Many a times you said that rightly, and I come to know now your session only that why you not answering my questions, right? You can say the answers on the WhatsApp, right? I'm sorry for that. I'm disturbing you many a times in between, right? So I'm very much happy to you over here to share your ideas. It was really awesome sessions with you. Thanks a lot to Prajot, in
Thank
spite
you.
of your busy
Thank you.
schedule, right? You spend time with us, and I'm very much thankful to you for this.
Thank you, Samir, and
Yeah,
all the best to your students.
yeah. Thanks a lot. Yeah. Still we are living now. Thank you, one and all.